Hi, I'm Alison Taafe. If you haven't met me before, I am the owner and director of ICE, the Institute of Culinary Excellence. So what I'm going to try and do is just start you off with some basics. So let's go right to the beginning, and we're going to go through some basic knife skills, knife cuts. So today's class is going to be cutting a julienne, and a jardinière, a macédoine, a brunoise, and some mirepoix. So first things first, these days we have to do sanitizer, we all know that. We're going to wash hands first, and then I'm going to get my bench ready. So just hold on there, I'm just going to wash my hands to get started. I've washed my hands, dried them off, bit of sanitizer on there. All right, we're also going to use a sanitizer to make sure our bench is very clean. I don't want to use the little green one because it's too small, so I'm just going to put you there as a reminder. All right, now, this board slips and slides all over the place, which is horrendous for safety. We've got to be safe at what we do. We've got to be efficient and effective, but also really safe for us. So the best trick, and you probably already know this, you can put a wet chucks underneath. I usually just use a couple of bits of paper, and I wet them down, and I make my own little protection board like that. This is my veg that's been washed and almost prepared, and over here I've got my preparation bowl. So we flow. I'm a right-hander, so we flow left to right. I'm going to show you how to peel. You think it's like, oh my God, I'm watching this and I'm watching how to peel a bloody carrot. Well, you know what? We are going to peel a professional way. We're going to take off a minimum amount of waste, and we are going to use that for our compost here at the school. So let's take a carrot. Now, I was always taught to wash my root vegetables first. So wash, peel and rewash. It might look super clean, but I'm just going to wash it because I'm going to practice what I preach. Easy, right? Go here and peel into a bowl, not all over the place. All right, so you've got a nice stable board, you've got a carrot that you've peeled, and now we're going to top and tail, all right? We're going to use a knife in a guillotine kind of action. We're going to keep our hands out of the way, and we're going to just chop down, use the point on the board, and we're going to just chop straight down. Fingers out the way, knife safe, and this little baby goes in our compost. Turn him round, but notice I'm only taking a small amount off. Once this is peeled and chopped and basically topped and tailed, as we call it, we are going to pop that back on our tray. So you can see now that we've done our work, and this is what we call mise en place, put in place. All right, so onions have been peeled for me by my wonderful apprentice, Dee. I'm going to grab an onion so I can show you the peeling as well. I don't normally wash onions, but if they are filthy dirty and they are organic and they've got great big roots that need washing, give them a wash, because otherwise the board contaminates, all right? But what we're going to do with this, we're going to change knives. So we used a chef's knife before, and now we're changing to a little paring knife. All right, you're going to take the top and the bottom off, but you're not going to do what a lot of chefs do, and that's hack here, hack there, and be left with half an onion. What you're going to do is take off the bare essential root at the bottom, and you're going to take off the bare essential at the top, yeah? That goes in your compost, and now we have a lot of the onion. And there's a method in my madness. This is where you get all the milky, acidic, strong-smelling, making you cry kind of activity. So if you don't hack that off, and you only leave a small amount, there's not much coming out. So it's going to reduce your tears, all right, which is good. But you do always need to have a solid base. When you're cutting anything, look at this. This rolls around really bad. It's always really cool to have a solid base to work on, all right? So to peel this without cutting it in half, which is the usual thing that we do, we're going to take a knife and we're going to run the knife down the side of the onion peel, not too deep. And what we're going to do is then, hopefully, with our use of our fingernails, which I still have, we're going to peel back the onion to the bare essential again, so we're not wasting heaps. See? It's really, well, it's easy if you've got fingernails, and if you haven't got fingernails, you can use your paring, turning, or vegetable, or utility knife, whatever you want to call it, and you have the perfect onion. It's not hacked, it's not cut, and I'm not crying, because I've not done any of the cutting through that root end, all right? All right, so let's pop those back on there. Next up, celery. Celery, this is a good one. All right, again, you're going to use this top and tail kind of effect. See that little baby? Into the compost. Now, a lot of chefs would just do this, chuck that. I don't want you to do that. What I want you to do is take away the leaves of the celery. It sounds stupid, but there's a reason for this. We are going to take away the leaves. Now, these leaves can be used shredded as a garnish. They can use as a base for a Waldorf salad. They can go in as a garnish to a soup, minestrone. They have so much flavour and taste. We waste that. We chuck it out. So I'm going to get you to try and think about using as much as you can. This is what we call usable trimmings. This is unusable but usable in compost, but it means it's not going to be served to a customer, okay? So you've got waste, compost, and you've got usable trimmings. All right, so see all that celery that's there from here to here? You'd have chucked that out. All right, what we're going to do though is take it off, and we're going to use that later on for something else. So if you're going to put it into a soup or a stew or a stock, you can use that bit. It has great flavour. It's the top end of the celery that's been exposed to the sunlight. So it has beautiful, delicate flavour. So what I will show you is, imagine that was the one with the roots on the bottom and the big old green leaves on the top. Let's just bear with me. All right, what I was taught to do is to cut into that way and open up these layers. You see this? Hold the root and then wash it under the tap so that all the dirt can disappear. All right, failing that, you can cut it into 4 and plunge it into cold water, but don't grab the bottom of the sink because all the dirt's going to come up as well. All right, so that's the way we would normally prepare a leek. All right, so our first veg cut is probably the easiest one. It's called a mirepoix. So that terminology is mirepoix. It doesn't really translate, but just so that you can remember, it is and I'm not going to use the word rough, because some of our apprentices take that as rough, meaning they can do whatever they like. Let's just say a random shaped but evenly sized mixture of onion, carrot, celery, and sometimes leek. And I'll explain why the leek is only sometimes. Let's take a smaller carrot. Take a carrot, we'll take an onion, we take some celery, and we're going to start off with our basic mirepoix. The leek is not used if the mirepoix is fried. And if the mirepoix is being used for one of its many uses, which is to make a brown stock or a brown sauce, the leek will burn very, very quickly. So we tend to eliminate that for any brown stocks or sauces. But we put the leek in if we're making a white chicken stock, or if we're making a white stew or a blanquette, or one of those white things where colour is not important and therefore it's not fried. Because leek has an amazing flavour, but it's not great when it's been burnt in the mirepoix because it's very fine and you can't make it into a big size. It just goes into a thin sheet. All right, so we're going to take a chef's knife because that's the best knife to use for this. Make sure our board's nice and stable. And we're going to cut this up. Let's just say random, not rough. That's the new word. All right, so what we'll do is, remember I said about making sure these things are stable? The best thing you can do is to put your fingers either side of an onion and take your knife, point down, and go straight down in the onion so that you have a safe base. So it's not rolling around. That's the best thing, right? Now, onion is slightly different because that also has layers. Not as thin as a leek, but it has layers. So we have to cut that slightly bigger because we know full well it's going to break up. Okay, so I'm going to do the celery first because this is easy, right? Now, the shape and size of a mirepoix, shape is whatever shape you're dealing with, and size is anything from about 1 centimetre cubed or squared up to 2 centimetres. But whatever you do, it has to be the same size, all right? A mirepoix that's too small is known as a Matignon, which is a different term altogether, so be careful. This has to be even. Remember, this is being fried. So everything's got to cook at the same time. All right, now if I cut the celery here and I cut the celery here, already I'm incorrect. So the best thing I can teach you is to cut that celery into a similar width to the end, okay? So it's like this kind of thing. All right, I'm going to use that because otherwise that's a waste. Okay, now the chopping technique we're going to use, it's not just this without a hand. We're going to introduce our fingers. You've probably all heard of the claw effect. You probably all, at some point in your first year or second or third year, have a chef telling you you've got to keep your fingers in. All right, the minute you keep your fingers out, you're going to chop them off. Like, it's obvious. But what we find really hard to teach for our level 1 certificate 2 students, they've never been in the kitchen before, is how uncomfortable that feels. Now, remember, I've been a chef for, as I said, 39 years. I get it. My fingers naturally do it. I've got a callus on my knuckle because that's the most important hand, is to guide your knife. So without the food, we're going to chop like this. If I don't move this guide hand, my food is going to be sliced ultra thin. And in the end, I'm just going to run out, right? If I move that hand back, my knife's going to go back. The piece is going to be enormous. So remember that. So try chopping like this so that the back of the knife just hits the knuckle. The minute you go over like that or open like that, it's disaster. All right, so you've got to find a way, I guess, where you feel comfortable. I tend to lift my fingers up and I tend to relax a bit. Remember, but I'm experienced. I've been doing this for years. You've got to find your safe place, your comfortable place. Just remember to keep all your fingers behind your knuckles. That's all the best advice I can give you, all right? So it's all very well doing this without the food, but once the food goes in, it's a different story. So what I'd like you to do is practice this. Now, you see the tip of the knife and the back of the knife. We use this in a rolling action. So we're not doing this. God forbid we should do this. We're doing this, all right? That's the slicing action. It even goes back to this. If any of you have ever played tennis or learnt to play tennis at school, I was always a tennis player, I loved it. I was taught to hold my racket so that the racket itself had a direct flow up my arm. Now, if I was chopping like that right now, I couldn't do it. I'd look like a right fool. I had to find my place where I felt safe. I used to chop with my finger on top. I thought that's cool because I was like, yeah, okay, I've got more control. One of my chefs at Westminster, I had Antoine Moserman as a chef at Westminster, Michel Roux. I had many, many great famous chefs used to come in and teach, and they say, put that finger down, put that finger away. I'm like, nah, I'm not listening to you, I'm good. Do you know what? It's actually right. This is less control than when the finger is down. But I still do this. And if I slip into it today, let me know, all right? You can't on the camera, but you can let me know. You can say, you did it, you did it. I'm going to try so hard not to do it because it's my default thing. So this has much more control than this, all right? Now, bring the food in. Have a claw or a bridge or whatever you want to do, all right? When you do this, if I'm not moving my knuckles, I'm not cutting anything, right? If I'm moving my knuckles slightly, I'm cutting ultra-thin pieces of celery that would only be pretty good for a ward-off salad or whatever. No good for anything, all right? If I move my hand back too far, my knife's going to join it. And hey presto, massive pieces. So it's so hard to teach you through a camera, but once we get you in the kitchens, we can show you how that feels. So much better, all right? Now, watch. If I'm going to bridge my fingers like so, my tip of my knife is here, and I'm going to go down like that guillotine, but I'm moving the knife like this, all right? Just be careful that you don't, you detach every slice. What we want is between 1 and 2 centimetre pieces. So let's do the first one, all right? Here, like so. Move the knife back with the fingers, back. Always chopping down, all right? Never this, never, all right? Now look at those pieces. That's because I split the bottom of the celery. If I hadn't, I'd have had great big pieces, wouldn't I? All right, back again, last one. And now we're going to go to a different cut because we've got a thinner piece. So when they all go together, like so, all right, they're all the same size. All right, let's pop those babies in there. You can go smaller, like I said, but a Mirepoix is big, meaty, 1 to 2 centimetre pieces that can be fried. And why not just fry this whole? Well, it's about surface area. The more pieces and edges and sides you have, the more chance of getting that golden brown colour, which is what we need to put into our brown sauce, brown stock, brown stew. That's why we cut a Mirepoix, okay? That's the celery. All right, let's cut the carrot next, okay? And always remember to clean off your board and make sure, especially when you've chopped parsley or you've chopped anything that possibly might have a bit of soil left in it, you wipe that board down every time because otherwise your carrot will go into your chopped parsley or your parsley will go into your onion and it's messy, you know. I shouldn't even have that onion on there now. I should only have the piece of food that I'm dealing with from the prep tray on the board and into my prep bowl here. So remember that. This is not a tray to have storage. You know, bit of parsley, bit of garlic, it's messy, it's unprofessional. Just remember, if you finish your job, clean it off, wipe it down, and your board and your bench is very professional all times. It's really important, okay? You get more done and you're more professional in what you do. All right, okay, so we've topped and tailed other carrots. I haven't topped and tailed this one. Remember, let's get a size guide, all right? Because our carrot's got to be like that, all right? Now, remember what I said about the safe base? All right, so what we're doing is we're going to use the knife and we're going to chop the carrot in half to get our flat bottom, to get our flat base. Otherwise, I'm chasing this baby around on the board. It's not good. All right, so what you can, if you want, line up your veg and you can chop using that method where these are the control fingers, remember? This is your size guide. Remember, nice and, if you don't move it, super fine carrots for whatever. If you do move it too big, massive chunks, also bad. But if you generate that length with your fingers and you're safe, you cut an awesome Mirepoix. All right, now that could be too big for some people. You might want to make it smaller. We don't want chefs hand redesigning every piece of Mirepoix. So let's pop those in there. This is too small. And if we put that in there, remember what we said? We're going to fry these up together. That's going to burn and be horrible, and that's going to be blanched with no colour. So let's try and keep it nice sizing all the way around. Now the onion makes life tricky for us because it has its own layers. Okay, so the thing is, I'm going to change knives here because what I need to do is take the root out. We need to cut that out for some cuts. For the Mirepoix, no, we need to keep it in. But when we're slicing onion, which I will show you, we take out the root. When we're cutting a brunoise, we leave it in. Oh, it's complicated, but we're going to show you. All right, so with the root, we're going to have a root facing me, and this is the top of the onion. We're going to cut this into a series of slices, turn it round, and then cut it into a series of dice, all right? Remember, though, the dice can be slightly bigger to begin with because it's going to break up, right? Now, I can't tell you if it's 2 or 3 or 4 cuts because that depends on your onion. But for me, I'm going to cut that into 1, 2, 3 times a lady, okay? That was a Commodore song for those of you that are interested in music. All right, we're going to turn him around, and I'm going to cut probably 2 cuts into this. I could actually cut it into 1 because size-wise, but let's go into 3. And you notice then, with that root still attached, you have some possibility of keeping that together. I mean, it's going to break as soon as I pick it up, but what we're going to try and achieve here is that these are as similar as we can get them, and Mother Nature has determined that onion's going to fall apart. So let's pop that in our Mirepoix. Now, remember what I said about leeks? The reason we don't use leek is because they're going to be too thin and they're going to burn, all right? For a white chicken stock, or a white stew, or a soup, the way you want the flavour, a Mirepoix sometimes has leek. What I tend to do is use leek in a Mirepoix, but I don't fry it. So if I'm frying the Mirepoix in some nice dripping and some nice, rendered beef fat or whatever, I'm frying that up for colour. I'm going to add that drained into my stock with my bones and my water. So all that caramelised sugar from the veg is going to go into that and make a colour. I want the flavour of the leek, so I tend to put the Mirepoix of the leek in after the first fry. I'll put that in as it is, just as it is. No colour, no frying, but I got the flavour there. I don't mix it with that, all right? So let's grab another little bowl, just so that you remember that that leek does not go in for anything that you're making that requires the Mirepoix to be fried. All right, now you can take that Mirepoix down a size. And as I was just talking to Matt, the size of the Mirepoix is about related to what you're making. So the Mirepoix could be kind of smaller if you're making a julienne, for example, or a jus. It takes 45 minutes to make a jus, if that. This, the brown stock takes 6 to 8 hours. That's got to withstand that cooking for 6 to 8 hours without it breaking down and pureeing and discolouring your stock. But for something that's only cooked for like half an hour or 45 minutes, you want the flavour, you want the colour, but it can be smaller. It's going to give out flavour quicker. So let's cut down another Mirepoix and let's make it slightly smaller, okay? Remember, same cuts, fingers, already I've done, my little middle fingers come out. It's a thing I do, can't help it. We're going to use that. We're going to cut that just to here, and I'm going to pop that in a new bowl because remember, take it off the board when you finish it. Okay, that one can go back in. I'm going to grab some celery, and I'm going to use this one. Remember what I said to save this? See this bit here? Perfect, perfect. And it's the same size as my carrots. Look, perfect. See? Oh, that one's probably a bit too big, but anyway. Look, I'm using that, which otherwise would be thrown away. Now this, you could use it, but don't just use it for the sake of it. Remember, this is being fried, so cut that longer, Get rid of that. That can go into our bouquet garni. Celery stalks, easy. All right, that can go in there. So just the fact that it's longer, it's still similar in size. Okay, that's going in there, so that comes off. Boom. And our onion, easy. We're just going to cut that into slightly smaller, so we're going to go probably into 5 and into 3, like we said before. Perfect. When that falls out, that little piece there, once it breaks down, look, the root's kind of holding it in place, but it's bigger, but it's thinner. That's what's really important there, all right? So that's a little Mirepoix that you can use for a julienne in class. We tend to do stock soups and sauces as a first-year subject. I love stock soups and sauces. It's my favourite subject. I was a chef saucier for a long time, And I was only interested in making the best stock, the best glaze, the best jus I could make, the best velouté, bechamel, and also a sauce chef used to cook all the main dishes. So we were the superstars, we were the rock stars. We were like exec chef, sous chef, chef saucier. That was the position I wanted. I love the main kitchen and I love making sauces and stock, so it was my haven. All right, so that's the Mirepoix, and if you want to make a note of it somewhere, draw a little picture, you know, make a little note, say what size it is, and the uses for a Mirepoix are usually a flavouring only. It's not normally served to a customer because we strain it away at the end once it's done its job. So colour and flavour for a beef stock, brown, beef veal stock, brown chicken stock, or even a Espagnole, which is one of those old-fashioned mother sauces. That term you guys use here in Australia is mother sauce. We use the word base sauce or basic sauce in Europe. But it's the same sauce that then you make derivatives from. Remember, a Mirepoix is very rarely served to the customer. It's done its job, it's tossed aside with the bones. All right.